Hi, I'm Eliza, and today I want to talk a little bit about guitar practice. Not necessarily what to practice. There are loads of really great resources out there on warm-up exercises, finger strengthening exercises, although I would like to make one of those, so if you'd like to see one, let me know. But actually, I want to talk about practice itself, how to approach it, methods of practicing, and just sort of give you my ethos, my outlook on how to practice guitar effectively, because that really is the sort of the key, the holy grail to achieving anything you want to with guitar. If we kind of look at our practice and how to adjust that to fit our goals, that's how you're going to be able to get to wherever you need to be with your playing. So that being said, let's just dive straight in. First, I want to deal with this question that seems to be, I think, the most common, and it was certainly a question that I had, which is how many hours should I practice, or how many hours do you practice? I get, a few people asking me that on my Instagram and so on. But when I first started playing, that was something that I was just sort of desperate to know, how many hours people practiced, because it felt like this sort of key to, if there was a player that I looked up to and they would say, oh, I practice 3 hours a day, then it would be like, great, okay, I know what I'm shooting for, I know what I'm aiming for. And unfortunately, I'm about to give you the same slightly frustrating answer that almost every player does, in that it really, really varies day to day, week to week. If you're not somebody that has a really structured week, there are always things that happen, there are always things going on in life, and it can be difficult to have a really rigorous practice schedule. So for me, I tend to practice in a more goal-oriented fashion. So if there's a particular problem I'm wrestling with, a particular solo that I want to play, a particular technique that I want to achieve, a particular lick, then my practice hours will kind of shoot up, and the most I will practice will be sort of the 6-7 hours mark. But don't be frightened if you're hearing that. That's not necessary by any manner of means. So that's like the upper limits of what I'll do. And then I'll have days where, if I haven't thought of what the next thing I want to learn yet is, or, if I'm just not feeling super inspired, or if I'm just very, very busy with other things, then I might not even practice on some days, or I might just strum a few chords on my acoustic and that'll be it. Just have a little noodle for a couple of hours. I think if you averaged everything out, 1 to 2 hours a day is going to make you a very, very solid player over, a number of years. So secondly, I kind of want to talk about kinds of practice. What I mean by that is there are kind of different levels of engagement that we're going to have with our instrument. So not just what we're practicing in terms of, practicing rhythm guitar and then lead technique and so on and so forth. So not just what, but in terms of actually how present we are, how much we're using our ears, how much we're using our brains, and there's value to the different levels of that. So when I first started out playing, practice for me was pretty much just sitting with your guitar on my lap, kind of noodling whatever came to mind, trying out a riff, and then not really finishing learning a song, but just, going back and forth through different stuff. This kind of practice is fine. There's nothing wrong with it. And, if you're just starting out, it can be really helpful for just getting comfortable holding a guitar, being used to having one on your lap, removing kind of tension, because it can kind of cause you problems if you're really tensed up when you're playing. So that kind of practice, fine. However, unfortunately, the metronome is your best friend. Now, metronome practice, I have a certain approach to it. It's one that I've heard a lot of people speak about. Basically, what you want to do is, I use a metronome online. I think it's literally just called metronomeonline.com. I'll try and link it below. It's quite good because you can kind of make an account and see how many hours you practice, which for me, that's kind of motivating, being able to quantify my work and see it. Take whatever it is you're learning, solo, phrase, lick, just a little repeating thing, whatever it is. Set your tempo very slowly, to where you're really getting everything precise. Play it 4 times through perfectly. Some people like to, go higher numbers than that. Some people aim for playing it 5 or 10 times through. You make a mistake, go back to the start, you're back on 1, and try and get through 4 rounds through, whatever it is you're practicing perfectly. And then increase your metronome by 5 BPM increments at a time, and you're going to see pretty rapid improvement from just using that technique. A couple of other things to say about this: methods of practice, modes of practice, because you want to do that and a bit of noodling and a bit of, you know, just playing along with songs. Slightly controversial practice tip for your more technical phrases that you're going to repeat with your metronome over and over and over and over and over. Once you have really locked in the notes you're playing and you're happy with the timbre and you've spent a while with it and you feel like you know the phrase or the lick, put some TV on whilst the metronome's going. I mean, that's what I do. Can't be anything too interesting, so no like true crime or whatever. Go for like, I don't know, a sitcom or whatever, or like a cartoon, whatever your kind of comfort show that you've seen loads and loads of times is. Put it on, and it's going to just occupy that little part of your brain that just doesn't want to be there. You know, when it gets to like hour 2 of picking the same arpeggio and you kind of want to die. That little part of your brain kind of shuts it up, occupies it, and personally, I find I could practice a lot longer, and it was actually really effective. You don't want to be sort of doing that all the time to where you're disengaged. You want to make sure that, like, you know, you've got the lick under your fingers first and you know it. But for that kind of technical, just 5 BPM at a time stuff, watch some TV. Seriously, it makes things so much better. Practice in different settings, scenarios, and postures too. So if you're somebody that can play guitar standing up, practice playing guitar standing up and sitting down. Practice with people within earshot, maybe listening to you. Again, that's more, you know, if performance is a goal of yours, doesn't have to be if you don't want it to be. But if it is, then practice with people listening. Record yourself. That's really helpful. Sometimes we think we're nailing a solo and it sounds like hot garbage when you play it out. Integrate all these different techniques for practicing and you're going to be a much more well-rounded player. Okay, so my third point is something that I think is kind of undervalued and under-discussed. Knowing what your personal goals are as a player and practicing for them. What I mean by this is that if you're brand new to guitar and you're really into Eric Clapton, let's say, and your goal is to be a really solid blues player, maybe you prefer slower, expressive, you know, styles, you want to be sort of a Gilmore type player or something like that, and you have really no interest in the other kind of stuff, because I think there's this kind of on the shoulders of giants thing where there's a lot of pressure these days. You have to be able to do the virtuoso thing and play crazy chord extensions and, you know, whatever. You don't have to. If you don't want to, if it doesn't bring you joy, forget about it. And it's not going to make you feel great if you're brand new to the guitar, you want to play some like really beautiful, emotional, slower stuff, and that's just where you want your sort of remit to be, like a 12-bar blues player, and you click on a practice routine video and it's like a really scary metalhead telling you that unless you know, practice one sweep arpeggio to a metronome for 2 hours a day, every day for the rest of your life, then you're going to suck and people will hate you. That doesn't feel good. So bear in mind, you know, really, and if you don't know what kind of player you want to be yet, try and figure it out, you know. Sit with yourself and kind of go, okay, if you envisage where you want to be as a player, do you see yourself being a very technical shred person? Because that's also great, awesome, crack out the metronome, you know what I mean? And really go through those meticulous motions as well. But if you don't really see yourself doing that, then it's okay to readjust and focus on things like vibrato, feel, you know, ear training, maybe learning from other players. Of course, these are important things for shred players too, but you see what I'm saying. You don't have to do things that don't bring you joy if it isn't feeding into your goals ultimately as a player. So don't worry about that. Okay, number 4, anybody that follows me on Instagram will know that I have raging tendonitis in this arm at the moment, which sucks. So I should really practice what I preach a little more, because you need to be conscious of your practice health. I've been playing for around 6 or 7 years now, so I'm just getting to that point where there's some wear and tear going on. You know, I'm getting like a sore back and a, you know, sore tendon here. So the earlier that you start looking after your practice health, the better, so that you don't run into problems further down the line. In the same way that athletes need to warm up, recover, and stretch because they're using their bodies, you do too as a musician. So, you know, forearm stretches, finger stretches, Your back also might get kind of sore if you're sat a lot, so maintaining good posture, but everybody's posture slips over hours, and even just sort of looking at your fretboard, if you're somebody that ends up practicing, putting a lot of hours in, that will get sore after a while. So using things like acupressure mats, I find those really, really nice for if you encounter any back trouble. Icing your hand, knowing when it might be appropriate to take a break, or use an anti-inflammatory gel. Make yourself aware early on of the ways to manage problems and prevent problems with health. If you would like a video on that, let me know and I will make one. Okay, and my final point that I just want to talk about really is understanding what you are playing and why. What I mean here is basically applied music theory. But I think the theory thing can be intimidating, confusing, if you're not somebody that's, I've kind of had the privilege of having a formal music education, both in school, and I play classical piano, and I had classical piano lessons before I came to the guitar, which I think was it's kind of easier for me to be self-taught. But that's not a privilege everybody has. Not everybody has access to that. So if you don't, it can be, you don't know what you don't know, and it's quite hard to self-direct. So the best way to sort of get into that and to use theory effectively is learn some songs and see if you can really get kind of intimate with how those songs are working, learn what's going on and why. So if you're playing solo, ask yourself, what key is this in? Okay, can I go and, or maybe you've even just read online the song's in the key of G. If you don't know what that means, research into that a little bit. Okay, what does it mean to be in the key of G? Which notes are involved? Learn the notes on your fretboard. Oh, I'm in a pentatonic scale here. Learn about the pentatonic scale. Here's the intervals they're using, and here's how this guitar player is employing chords. Oh, okay, they're voicing that, in this way. And really, I think one of the best ways to begin to build up your theory knowledge, further down the line, you're probably just going to have to do some solid theory work, song by song, project by project. Get to know it, really, really, understand what you're playing, why it works, how it works. If it's a song you like, okay, you might know the chords, but how do you make a C major chord? What are the ingredients? Why does it work? How does it work? What's the chord progression? How does it make you feel? Because then, the more you learn about that, when you go on to, creating your own music, which is really how you develop your style as a player, you're going to be able to make informed decisions, and it's empowering, and it means that you can be creative in a more intentional way. And it cuts out a lot of stress, a lot of struggle. So definitely get some theory in there from the beginning. So that is all I have to say for now about practicing. I hope that it's been somewhat interesting, informative. Really just wanted to share my personal kind of approach, my personal ethos. These are all things that I've sort of come to realize over the past 7 years. The most important thing is that you're just enjoying yourself. That's kind of the point anyway. Music is to bring yourself and others joy. So, if you want to just disregard all of this and just have fun. There's nothing wrong with that. But hopefully, employing some of this kind of knowledge can help you get where you need to be, and you can really become any kind of player that you want. So thank you very much for listening, and I will catch you in the next one.